Welcome back to Bennett's Bike Social. I'm Michael Mann, and this is episode 25 of our Better Riding series, powered by Honda Motorcycles UK. Joining me, as always, is our expert motorbike coach, Mark McVeigh. Let's bring him in now.
G'day, Mr. Mann. How are you today?
Fab, thanks for asking, Mark. Yeah, I'm well. How's life on the other side of the world?
Yes, really good, thank you. I won't tell you what the temperature is, but it's been raining, so.
Okay, Mr. McVeigh, what are we learning about today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about motorcycle ergonomics. So, we'll talk around, the fact that the motorcycle is a tool and, the rider's the operator, and ergonomics is essentially the interface between the two. And, it's super interesting because training 10,000 riders, we see so many riders that kind of overlook ergonomics, but it's such a hidden gem for better riding. And, we tell the riders not about looking fast or being aggressive. It's really about creating a riding position that helps you stay relaxed and, you can see more, react earlier, and control the motorcycle, all with less effort. That's the key thing. And of course, the overall aim is, optimum application of your controls, throttle, brake, steer, and vision on your body.
It has such a massive impact, doesn't it? Because you're a lot of the weight. What have you told me before? You are, I think the rider is 1/3 of the overall package, isn't it, in terms of weight? And it has such an impact on the dynamics of the bike and how your weight shifts around, and it impacts on the bike itself and its movements. But I'm sure we'll get into that as the episode progresses. It's interesting, actually. I was talking to Steve Rose, who's the boss of Bike Social, the other day, and he was saying, we were talking about track days. He's way past track days these days, and but he still talks about, he still tests all sorts of different types of bike, including sports bikes. And he says he's got to warm up and do stretching before he rides on a sports bike. Now, is that a sort of a direct result of poor ergonomics, or dare I say age?
Well, I'm not far behind Steve, so I'm not going to talk about age, but I guess the takeaway there is, you guys, do a lot of road testing, and, you don't have the luxury of making those kind of large, ergonomic changes that you would do, with your personal motorcycle. So I guess that kind of, compromises, your riding position a little bit. But we often talk about the rider triangle, and every motorcycle is built around these kind of 3 contact points of your seat, your handlebars, and your foot peg. So getting that triangle working for your body and the bike that you ride is really important. And if you get it wrong, you can kind of end up fighting the bike. So the key point is really to be relaxed. And we've got a good bit of roll here with somebody using their light hands and soft elbows, loose shoulders, and letting the motorcycle steer naturally. The more tension you carry in your upper body, the more likely you are to upset the chassis and add in those unwanted control inputs, if you like. But it's just interesting now looking at that bike. There's no clutch lever. Can you tell us a bit about that and the tech and its influence on your ergonomics?
Sure, yeah. It's a Honda Africa Twin. It's the Adventure Sports version, so it's the bigger one. And it's the DCT, which is dual clutch transmission. So it's a system that Honda developed, they introduced it in 2010, and it's been through various stages ever since, and it's updated. But it basically means that the bike will change gear for you. So it's like an automatic car. We're all if we drive a car these days, most of them are automatic, and they've got these sort of very, very slick sequential gearboxes or automatic gearboxes that do everything for you, and it's just the same. And it means that it's one operation less that you have to worry about on the bike. When you get used to it, it's phenomenal. I mean, the technology is very, very advanced. But what it means is that when you are coming to a roundabout, coming to a red light at the traffic lights, or if you're slowing down to stop, you haven't got to worry about bringing that clutch in, finding first gear or even neutral. Just the bike does everything for you, and it means that when on that particular ride, was some beautiful B roads on a nice day. It meant that I can concentrate a lot more on the road ahead, my vision, what I'm looking at, as opposed to changing gears. Am I in the right gear for this corner? Am I approaching this at the right speed? So my focus and that's what, your question was about influence on ergonomics, but I felt there's one less operation, so I could focus elsewhere. And actually, once you get used to it, it's a really, really good system.
Fantastic.
But yeah, it's all good.
Super interesting. Yeah, the technology that's, helping you, the quality of your ride at the end of the day. There's some interesting stuff coming out, that's for sure. Yeah, well, I guess, what we saw in that video, your body's kind of stable and, but when other riders, like, they kind of overuse the bars for support, that's a big thing. The steering becomes heavier and less precise and less sensitive, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute. But I got this other little clip, and I thought this was interesting because there's a wet corner here. And obviously the goal for you is, to let the bike move kind of freely underneath you. So if I roll that again, do you want to talk through what you were kind of thinking on this corner, Michael?
Yeah, sure. You can see there's a big wet patch that runs across the corner. And as I'm on the approach, I've seen it. I've seen it in plenty of time to make my adjustments so I can move in the road position to take the corner. I don't know the corner, I don't know the road, but by moving to that lane position, it meant that it's a tall bike and I'm a tall guy. So, and that's a good point actually, because I make sure that in all of my road reviews, regardless of what bike it is, that I explain in the whether it's a video, whether it's a written piece, of my height, my dimensions, because for the reader or the viewer, it makes it poignant or relevant that I'm this height, this weight, this inside leg measurement, because they're perhaps referring to, or I'm talking to an audience that might be anywhere between, I don't know, 5'2", 5'3", all the way to 6'3", 6'4", and their point of view and what they're getting out of the review might be relevant, for their size and for the bike.
100%.
But in this example, it was just a nice. I made sure that by having the bike in the right place and by my positioning, my head positioning, where I'm looking, it meant that I could then sort of use my body and the bike as one to flow through the corner without any kind of sudden movement. I didn't want to upset the grip of the tire, the suspension, and really any movement that would upset the bike itself and would cause me to lose grip. Yeah, I guess it's all a case of just kind of staying calm, staying relaxed, and not making sudden movements.
Yeah, well, you're very experienced, so it's kind of, you're on automatic pilot there, you can see. And, as supporting yourself with your lower body is really important. Your legs and your core should carry most of your body weight, not your hands. And important that your hands are kind of, soft and, free to, steer and brake, and also feel what the front tire's doing. So reducing that wrist pressure, and improving that front end feel, especially when you're got some water running across your apex there, like you had.
Yeah, it can act as a real surprise when you see something like that, and whether it's water, whether it's gravel, whether it's a roadkill, and there's plenty of other examples of sudden issues with the road surface ahead, and so long as you kind of carefully planned and you've listened to everything we've talked about in the last 24 and a half episodes, everything should be fine. But Mark, I wanted to ask, how do you know if you're supporting yourself too much with your upper body? Like how do you know if you're holding on too tight with your hands?
Yeah, that's a really good one. And one of the exercises we've been doing, with over 10,000 riders, is the core exercise. And we've got this excellent model here demonstrating it for us. Just sitting there, take your hands off the bars, and you'll feel, to stop yourself going forward, you'll feel, your core engaged to hold your body up. And that's kind of the feeling then that you should be chasing when you're riding. Relax those arms and feel that kind of core engage. So that's super important. And then another one is kind of like hinging at the hips, which is not really spoken about too much in the motorbike industry, but it's a fundamental, I guess, movement bending your hips while keeping your spine neutral. And it is considered a cornerstone, and kind of functional sort of ergonomics and posture to, I guess, protect the lower back and transfer load to stronger muscles, if that makes sense. And if we show this reel here, it's kind of a little bit like kind of poking your bum out. And if you watch this rider here, you'll see the kind of bum sort of slides back. And that's a little bit like a sort of, what you're trying to chase, if you like, that kind of feeling, and it's like, use it a lot on mountain bikes, talk about it a lot there. But it essentially is takes that weight off your arms. It's encouraging you to support your body with those kind of bigger muscles in the core, and that all converts into better vision, less fatigue, smoother breathing, all that type of stuff. And people say, well, my fitness, that's a big part of it, which it is. The fitter you are, the easier riding a bike will be, and a good hip hinge. So Google it to see some exercises and be mindful of that the next time you ride, and see what it does to your riding.
Riding's an athletic thing, isn't it? And when you're riding a bike, be it a sports bike or any type of bike, it is physical. You're moving this thing around, and you're moving around too, and you're burning some calories, so it's better than going to the gym. But it is an athletic, it is a dynamic exercise as well. And some bikes you get off and you do feel your aches and pains perhaps the next day. But it's interesting, and to make sure your bike setup is right for you as well. But that's really interesting about that core thing as well, because I guess once you know that it's engaged, you'll feel it, and you'll be able to keep what you mentioned, sort of loose elbows earlier on as well. But so that's upper body. What about lower body? How do we know if we're or what's the advice there for sort of holding on?
Well, I guess we're working our way down, so we're saying like soft hands and shoulders and elbows, not holding on with that death grip, core engaged. And then as we move further down the body, you've obviously got your knees, and squeezing them in against the bike's a big thing. And then talking about those three kind of points of the triangle is your feet. And on your toes like this, it's not so stable as you can imagine. And then when you go on the ball of your foot, it's a bit better. But then moving kind of to the heel or the middle of your boot, that kind of gives you more support. It's kind of like a foundation, if you like. And obviously you got to move your feet, to use the controls. But that helps, build that foundation from the way up, feet, and then squeezing with your knees, engaging the core, and then, reducing that kind of load on your hands. That's a massive thing that we see, people just holding on too tight. And that has such a negative effect on your riding, and even affects your vision. That's a big one too. If you look at this video here, most people are looking at the road just in front of them in the yellow, whereas the green is really where you kind of need to be looking, that vanishing point, that limit point, with a bit of scanning. And if you look at the ergonomics, like for example, if we go back to the triangle here and you look at this rider, you can see the kind of line going up the spine, but then when it gets to the head, you can see the head is in an awkward, unnatural position. It's kind of tilted up, and that just makes you tired. So your head will drop, and then when your head drops, your vision drops as well. So part of our system is, really it's about the leading with the vision. So your ergonomics must support, that good vision, like super important part of riding.
The more comfortable you are on the bike, and the more time you therefore spend getting comfortable, and that can come down to, like, I don't know, the way in which your brake lever, clutch lever are set, or even if you've been riding for half an hour, 3/4 hour, an hour, but just sort of focus on or remember that, am I comfortable? Am I in the right position? Do I need to relax my shoulders, my elbows a little bit more? All of that must come down to improving control, right?
100%. Comfort it's not a luxury, right? It's actually essential for your ergonomics. When you're seated and positioned well, throttle, brake, and steering inputs, everything becomes calmer and, more deliberate, easier to repeat consistently, and ultimately gives you a better control on the road. It's just really simple as that.
Yeah, and with smooth inputs as well. We talked about it with that Africa Twin example. The more comfortable you are on the bike, you're able to make smoother inputs, aren't you?
Absolutely. I mean, the craziest thing I've ever seen is this whiskey throttle, where somebody's actually just whacked on the throttle accidentally and totally out of control. But there's more kind of subtle, that's kind of like bookend, that's pretty extreme, but there's more subtle, abrupt, inputs, that with, throttle brake steering that can, surprise the tire or not load the tire as progressively as you want or is that you should aim for. So, keeping that bike settled super important. And, ergonomics and traction, it's very closely linked. If your body's tense or poorly positioned, those inputs become harsher and you're kind of using up more of your traction budget, if you like. And, and that reduces your margin for error, especially braking and cornering.
So we should be aiming for more modest ergonomics rather on the road than some sports bikes, for example.
Yeah, modest's a really good word, Michael. On the road, body position, should help with your balance, your vision, and reducing the lean angle that you need. But it shouldn't become exaggerated or track style. The aim is safe and smooth roadcraft, not dramatic, movements and of course fundamentals of riding like see and be seen, super important there. And if we talk a bit about how ergonomics affects the braking, we're talking about your bracing through your legs and your core. So and those hands are a bit more relaxed, so you get that kind of dexterity and that kind of more delicate feeling and precise feeling. And opposite per ergonomics then can reduce that even braking force. We talk a lot about most bikes can stop at 1G, but a lot of the riders can't do that. So small ergonomic problems can have bigger consequences, like the angle of your lever, the reach. We had the crazy story about the lady that didn't do the emergency stop because she could never reach the front brake lever. Well, of course, that's extreme, but there's different elements of that, so really important, to those subtle things can have a big impact on safety. We spoke before about the short brake lever that one of the guys did on the emergency stop. And he wasn't getting the proper torque, the proper leverage on that master cylinder and couldn't trigger the ABS on his bike. So there's plenty of stories like that going around.
Yeah, he was aiming for style over substance, wasn't he, with his short little lever, and it wasn't
Yes.
it wasn't performing. It's just all about the looks.
Exactly.
And a bad compromise. Now, cornering is what we do on motorcycles. We enjoy corners a lot, don't we, as bikers? But
Yes.
how can you explain how sort of good ergonomics, a good ride, a good bike setup, and us feeling good on the bike itself? How can that help with cornering?
Yeah, so let's look at the simple, geometry of the bike, for example. So if you look at this rider, you can see the steering stem, which is we've got it going through the forks here, but it's the same angle. If you're pushing down, you're not steering, but if you're pushing it, the closer you are to 90 degrees, the more torque you can get. So if we just bring that back and pause it there, you can see the force going at 90 degrees. That's the most efficient angle to push on your handlebars. And obviously pushing down, like if you were pushing directly from above, the handlebars won't turn at all. So the more closer you can get to 90, essentially the more efficient that steering is. So that's just one way that your ergonomics can help cornering, smooth steering inputs with less force required if you're at 90 degrees.
Of course, that's a sports bike, isn't it? In that example, so the rate control is slightly different than if you were riding a touring bike, a naked bike, or even an adventure bike. But
100%.
So it's clear that then better posture reduces fatigue as well. That's always a bit of a benefit.
Yeah, exactly. So, you've got less strain through your wrist, neck, and shoulders, so you can stay fresher for longer. And of course, fatigue affects your reaction time and decision making. So it's really important.
Mark, is there a sort of one hit fixes all sort of a rider setup that we should use?
Well, the thing is, if everybody was the same size and all the bikes were the same, then there would be, but there's no perfect kind of setup for everybody. Everybody's core strength differs, leg strength, flexibility, height, etc., etc. So the bike needs to be adjusted to suit the rider, not the other way around. And even if you're strong, like fitness definitely helps, but it doesn't replace the setup. The having good core strength, that's definitely a big one, but the goal remains the same, light hands, stable lower body, um, head up, smooth inputs, all those things just remain the same.
Yeah, makes sense. So I suppose even if you've got 2 or 3 bikes in your garage, or if you're a journalist and you're riding different types of bikes, it's all about making sure that you're comfortable on the bike before you set off. It's not just the same for everyone. Now, Mark, you've got your own riding system, and we've talked about it a lot in previous episodes. How does ergonomics fit into your 3 pillars?
Yeah, the 3 pillars. So skill, craft, and mind. And just a reminder, like the skill is all about machine control. Okay, so they're the drills that you're practicing in the car park, emergency braking, corner avoidance, all those things. And then craft is your roadcraft, and that's really to decrease your reliance on your skill. You don't want to have to use those skills, in a moment. So you kind of have that situational awareness and defensive mindset. That's the craft. And then the mind is, your attitude, your cognitive ability, fatigue, all those things. And ergonomics kind of comes across all three. So, if you think about, we spoke about fatigue a lot, if the rider's relaxed and, they've got more headspace, that's a big thing, so that just affects, your lines, your traction, positioning, braking, being able to stop within the distance you can see. It affects everything. The mind's such a massive part of it, really important.
So important's a key word here, isn't it? So make sure that it's all very easy just to get on a bike and think you can ride off, but is there a process? Is there a way in which we could teach riders how to set up their bikes, their ergonomics?
Yeah, I mean, it often comes down to common sense, but I guess, check the basics before chasing big changes. So, start with your levers, very important to your brakes, especially, the angle, the reach, the bar position, your foot controls. And then you can look at things like seat. There's lots of things you can change, the seat height, lots of people lower seats, etc. But I think, especially coming from the racing side of things, change one thing at a time. You do too many changes and it gets a bit confusion. So change one thing at a time and then test it, go out in a figure eight or do controlled stops in a, controlled environment. And then just, self-check, are you breathing good? Are your hands light? Can you look far ahead? Can the bike move without, tension? Those types of things. And, bear in mind what we spoke about with the steering geometry in the 90 degrees. So that's kind of the good mindset to have.
Mark, you're a resourceful man, but you're a man full of resources. Do you like what I did there? But so, and therefore, my question is: surely you've got where to direct riders for a bit more information on ergonomics.
Yes, and lots of different things. Yeah, super excited to be developing some new technology, and yeah, we've been working on this app, and it's essentially a motorbike coach in your pocket. So the basic function of the app is to send you riding tips every day. So if we talk about a lot about the 20 hours of training to get your license and the thousands of hours needed for mastery. So this is kind of using the science of micro learning to send you a riding tip every day. And then you can go deeper, and we've got a online training system on there as well. So it basically, you can go as deep as you like, but the riding tips is a good place to start, or you can search your riding tip history. So it records, all those tips. You get one every day, so you have 365 a year. And then we've also got an online community, so that's on motorbikecoach.com too. So you can do cohorts and meet with people from all over the world and talk about riding. And then probably the most exciting thing with our premium version is we've got an AI, so you can actually chat and talk to the AI And essentially, that's just like talking to me.
Mark, when are you going to go live with that? Is that so that's still in development, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, it should be live by the time we go to publish this video. So, yeah, no pressure.
Looks fascinating and an essential part of riders learning. Okay, well, shall we let's focus on ergonomics for a moment then, and well, maybe you just want to sum up what we've been discussing.
Yeah, well, like all our videos, they go for about half an hour, whatever, and you can't teach everything in one video. We talk about the thousands of hours of, structured training to mastery any pursuit. But to summarize, good motorcycle ergonomics, it's practical and it's not cosmetic. That's the important thing. Everybody wants to look good, but you got to be balanced and comfortable. And, the bike's a tool, you're the operator, and ergonomics is the interface between the two. It's really as simple as that.
Perfect. Yeah. So look, critically, the better you set your bike up, the more comfortable you are on it, the more you'll enjoy your ride.
Yeah.
Mark, looking ahead, what is the next episode 26, all about?
Yeah, 26. Well, it's the most asked question ever. How far can I lean?
We've done lots on grip already, haven't we? But I suspect we're gonna dive a little bit deeper on that one. It's fab. All right, sir. Well, let's leave it there. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your input on this episode. Fascinating as always.
No worries, Michael. See you next time.
Good. Thanks also to Honda Motorcycles UK for their support on this entire series. In the meantime, don't forget to check out all of the other better riding videos. I'll put a link in the description below or even in the comment section. So that'll have all of the other episodes in it as time goes by. So we have our own social media site, and just for us riders, it's full of experts from all different sort of walks of motorcycling life, from tires to oil to any kind of mechanic, and it's called Bennett's Bike Club. And the first rule of Bike Club is we do talk about Bike Club. The second, we offer a similar offering across a more familiar platform of Facebook. We have a private group there. It's called Bennett's Bike Social. Come and join us there. There's about 10,000 riders in there at the moment. And thirdly, well, don't forget to become a Bike Social member. Now, members get access to up to about 300 different motorcycle apparel, clothing, training discounts. Just search Bike Social membership. It is free if you insure your bike directly with Bennett's, but otherwise it's £6 a month or £60 a year. Fab. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next time.
Honda Motorcycles are supporting this series because safety is one of their key business pillars, and their quest for safety inspires their innovations in products, technology, and education, which is why they're committed to achieving zero traffic fatalities involving Honda mobility products worldwide by 2050.